Who would ever think that a girl who grew up in a Catholic church would ever find herself sitting in a synagogue listening to a Hebrew prayer? I know that I never expected this to happen to me. Here is my background. I grew up with two mediocre Catholic parents. My parents would attend church on holidays, and they would always make sure that we were appropriately dressed to be respectful of the Lord, as my mother put it. When I was 7 years old, my parents divorced, and I found myself becoming very close to my grandmother. My grandmother is a self-proclaimed holy roller and spends every Saturday night in church. Since I was 7 years old, my grandmother would take me to church with her and really allowed me to find my faith. I had been baptized, had my communion, and was confirmed, all in the Catholic Church. Although I've been unable to attend church regularly since I have been in college, I still find myself to be a religious person. Therefore, for my ethnographic study, I decided to become a member of the Jewish community. I spent time with two different families and learned about the religion as well as the differences between Hasidic Jews and the different levels of Reformed Jews. My first experience in my ethnographic study was when I went to my friend Meredith Berkowitz's house for dinner. Meredith is a self-proclaimed super Jew, or so she says. Meredith was the first person who came into my mind when it came to the Jewish religion, seeing that when our entire sorority was outside decorating for Christmas, Meredith was following us with Hanukkah streamers. When we got to her house for dinner, I came to find that Meredith's mother was very knowledgeable about the religion, yet they did not participate in many of the holidays that typical Jewish people would. Therefore, I really related my first experience with the Berkowitz family to being Jewish enough. Her family, in my point of view, was not Jewish enough for my ethnographic study. At this point, I had a minor breakdown, wondering if I could continue to do this ethnographic study with a family that knows all of the information but does not act upon it. It is just as simple as me sitting through a lecture on the religion rather than actually submerging myself into it. After discussing this with Professor Carbonaro, she pushed me to go on and see what I could do with this. I'm glad she did because I really feel like this ethnographic study helped me grow a lot. I decided to speak to my other friend Rebecca Eisenman and see if her family was Jewish enough. Thankfully they were, and I was invited to their home for dinner that week. We discussed everything about the religion, and I found myself using dialogical listening. Dialogical listening really helped me learn about being Jewish because I asked numerous questions and received all of the answers. Rebecca's mother told me the story about how the slaves from Egypt were saved and the meaning behind the matzo bread that I know so much about now. I always knew bits and pieces of the story, but I really enjoyed hearing the whole thing from someone who was so knowledgeable on the topic. Throughout the story, I found myself using empathetic listening so I did not interrupt and really did just sit there listening only to what she said. While sitting at the table, we decided to go to the temple that Friday. I was very nervous to go to the temple and was very scared that I would not be accepted. Friday finally came, and Rebecca and I went to her house to get ready to go to the synagogue. What I found really funny was that I kept saying, "I'm nervous to go to the synagogue." Her mother said that it's just like saying going to church. You don't have to say the church. So then I said, "I'm very nervous to go to synagogue." The family got a laugh at how awkward I felt in the new culture and how intimidated I was to go to the synagogue. I considered myself to be very transparent, just as we learned in this class. I did not disclose my feelings at all, but let the family know how awkward I felt and to understand where I was coming from. I did not hide anything because I really wanted to get as much out of the study as possible. So then the moment came. I was walking into synagogue. We went to the Beth Israel Synagogue in Vineland, New Jersey. When I first walked in, I was taken back by a beautiful sculpture that was dedicated to the victims of the Holocaust. The sculpture was breathtaking, and I did not expect to see anything like that, seeing that the Holocaust is something that is rarely, if ever, even spoken about in the Catholic Church. We walked into the temple and sat down in the pews. The pews looked like those of a Catholic church, although they had no little benches in front of them to kneel on. In fact, during the entire ceremony, we did not kneel once. When they took the Torah out, they walked through the aisles, and everyone would kiss their Bible and touch the Torah with it as if they were kissing the Torah through the Bible. What I think was the best part of the entire ceremony was the fact that I completely forgot that they speak Hebrew. I sat through a ceremony that was done in a language that I had never had any understanding of whatsoever. The Eisenman said that when they looked at my face, I had a blank stare through the entire ceremony. I was very nervous about people thinking I was disrespectful if I did not know what to do. I was continuously looking at nonverbal cues from people around to see me if they were staring at me or perhaps rolling their eyes at the girl who was sitting in the pews dumbfounded at the ceremony. All in all, I realized that Temple is a lot different than the Catholic Church. Rebecca's mother spent the entire drive back to her house explaining everything that went on during the Mass to me. To me, going to temple was the peak of my ethnographic study. There is no other way to completely get a feel for the religion unless you completely immerse yourself into it. The next Friday, I attempted to practice Shavuos with the family and Rebecca. This is from sundown on Friday night to sundown on Saturday night. We could not use any modern technology, cars, or anything that would be used in the modern world. Although Rebecca's family does not practice Shavuos because that's mainly done by Hasidic Jews, we decided to try it anyway. I believe it lasted about 2 hours because we forgot that we cannot use any lights whatsoever, so we found ourselves sitting in a pitch black dorm room because we could not even light candles. This really helped me gain a very high appreciation for the Jewish religion because it's so hard to stick to it. Then came Passover. I could not attend Seder at Rebecca's aunt's house due to a prior engagement I had to attend. Rebecca explained it all to me prior for leaving for her aunt's house. Our family enjoys having guests over for Passover, and they were really upset that I could not attend Seder. When I got back to school that night, Rebecca came to my room to drop off a bag of food that her mother had sent me with a note telling me not to break my fast until the following Thursday night. This is where self-trust came in. We discussed alarm clocks in class and how if we hit snooze, we are losing self-trust because we promised ourselves we'd wake up the night before. And I know that I am personally a huge snoozer. So this week of fasting was going to be very hard when it came to self-trust. To sum it up, I basically discovered a love for matzo and jelly. The two together are absolutely delicious, and it was pretty much what I lived on. I found it so hard to go downstairs in my sorority house to see girls eating pizza and other things that I would love to have had a bite of, but I didn't. I stuck it out, and I broke my fast the following Thursday night with a large pizza pie that Rebecca and I had ordered. Throughout this whole study, I gained such a high appreciation for the Jewish religion. It is very strict, and there is amazing history behind it all. Although I could not understand the Hebrew, when it was broken down to me in English, I was very taken back. I already told Rebecca that whenever I come to visit this summer, I am absolutely willing to go to synagogue with her.